Hi everyone. Um, Welcome in. We'll give you a few minutes for everyone to come on in and get your audio connected and everything before we fire away. Okay, it looks to me like everybody is in and audio is connected. So let's just kick it off. We'll start with little introductions. My name is Rosie Houlding. I am with the University of Glasgow. I'm from Scotland, but I'm based here in the States, and very happy to meet you all today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Smith. I'm a regional manager for the University of St. Andrews. I'm based in Colorado, and I've been with admissions at St. Andrews for about 5 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie Lomprey. I represent Edinburgh and Napier University. Only been in my role since February, so still cramming all of the UK information into my brain. But I am based in Madison, Wisconsin.
Awesome. I'm going to kick us off today with just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk a little bit about the structure of universities in Scotland. We're going to talk about how to apply, ancient naming conventions. Those are some things, we all speak English, but can get caught up on some of the verbiage. We'll cover healthcare benefits. And of course, we will cover Scotland. Why wouldn't you want to come to Scotland? So I think that one of the most important things to talk about when you're talking about studying at a university in Scotland is that we are a 4-year degree. So we can't always be lumped in with the rest of the UK. So England, Wales, Northern Ireland, those are typically 3-year programs. We are 4 years, and a lot of the US universities were actually modeled off the Scottish system. So we'll talk a little bit about what those similarities are, but there's also some differences. So when students apply to a university in Scotland, they don't just apply to the university in general. They do still need to pick a subject or two, but there is flexibility to try out some other subjects. Whereas like in the rest of the UK, you apply to a subject and that's what you study, but you're done in 3 years. In Scotland, we have a little bit more flexibility. So the big difference is, though, is we have no general education requirements. So students aren't going to come in and have to take a humanities class and a lab class. They're going to come in and they're going to start studying the subject they've applied to from the beginning. They can take a couple other subjects, but they have to be within what we call their faculty. So a student might come in and study English and add a couple other subjects within the Faculty of Arts or Humanities, similar on the science side. And Rosie's going to take you through a couple examples so it becomes quite a bit clearer. But what I typically say is students are really suited to a university in Scotland if they know generally what they want to study. They don't have to know very specifically, but they know they're an arts or humanities student as opposed to a science student. The type of student it doesn't work for is the type that's like, well, I like to study biology, but I also like to study the classics. That's extremely hard to do, and we generally don't think that's going to be a great fit. It's also a great fit for a student that knows what they don't want to study. So for me, knowing that I could come in and study international relations without having to take another chemistry class, I would have been very well suited to this system. The other part of it being 4 years is that you are able to study abroad without adding time to your degree. So again, if you're studying in England, if you want to have that study abroad experience, you typically take a year out and study abroad and then come back and finish your degree. But it is possible, encouraged to study abroad, and it becomes part of your 4 years in Scotland. So I think I'm going to turn it over to you, Rosie, to take everyone through a couple of examples of how that degree structure might look.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Sarah. So if you're just doing one degree, we would call it a single honors. This person here, this example person, they have chosen to do physics. So in year one, physics is their main core subject, and then they've taken two electives, two things that they can choose whatever they want. They've taken chemistry and astronomy. They have the flexibility at the end of year one to say, okay, I want to continue with physics, the subject that I've gone in choosing, and I want to do another elective in chemistry. I really did like that. At that point, they could then finish their degree through years 3 and 4 in physics or in chemistry. So they could change. Even though they came in as chemistry, they could be like, actually, I want to change my mind. So there's that flexibility. The one thing that they couldn't do here is decide to do astronomy. They couldn't say, okay, actually, I think I want to do my final 3 and 4 years in astronomy because they didn't take it in year two. So it has to be something they've taken from year one if they want to carry it through to year 4. And then the only other thing I would say about that is this student here did take chemistry in year two, but they don't have to. They could take something, another level one in something completely different. So there's that flexibility piece, but it's nice to explain it a little bit clearer with these images because it is different in the US. So it's just nice to understand it with, I'm a big fan of visuals. If you did a joint honors, it would look like this. So this person has come in doing a joint honors in economics and politics, and then they've taken electives in year one in history and then year two in classics. So then they've gone on with their joint honors. But at the same time, if this person at the end of year two had thought, oh wow, I really hate politics, they could just drop that altogether and they could just go back to doing a single honors in economics or a single honors in politics. So that's where that kind of flexibility piece comes in. We are going to have quite a lot of time for questions at the end. So if this isn't clear, please do say, and I will make it clearer.
Sorry for interrupting, Rosie. One thing I neglected to mention is that a lot of students and counselors will ask, can we bring in credits from AP classes concurrent at college level classes? And the answer is no, because our curriculum is just very different. It has to build year on year. So it's not like we just have a economics 101 that you can cross out. It's very different. So obviously those higher classes, those AP classes concurrent will help on the application because it will make you, we know you're ready for the rigor of the university, but there are no transfer credits.
Right. Thanks, Sarah. It does all go in together with that not having any general education classes. So a student at the end of year one in the UK, and a student at the end of in Scotland, sorry, and a student at the end of the year one in the US are at completely different points. So it's just kind of hard to talk about it as the same thing. And then I'll pass you over to Maddie for the next few slides.
Yeah, so I'll talk about just some ways that you can apply to all of the wonderful Scottish universities. The easiest way is through UCAS. We'll all be present there. While it may not always be straightforward for the international applicant, once you kind of understand the UK system, it's very straightforward when you're going through the process of either firming or declining your offer. From my personal view, I think it's a little bit easier to kind of learn the structure through that UCAS application process. But I believe the three of us are all on the Common App. Is that? Yes. So you can apply to our schools through the Common App, and some will also offer direct admission as well. But regardless of how you apply, it's really important that students are only applying to a maximum number of 5 programs. There are a lot of different reasons for this, but one, it makes it a lot easier on the application review side. So we're not reviewing a lot more applications than we need to, and we're not all vying for the same pool of students. So it helps us kind of manage our numbers. But on the students' end, it also doesn't stretch them too thin. It allows them to really build a strategic college list of only a few schools, as opposed to within the US system, maybe they're applying to 10, 15, or however many schools.
And just to add on to that as well, I don't know if this is all schools wide, but just to explain, like for Glasgow, if a student does apply to all 5 of their UCAS schools, but then also applies to a school on Common App, it does cause problems because for our students, you have to be in UCAS for us to accept you in the end. So if your UCAS if your UCAS 5 are full, there's nowhere for that common application to go. So then what you have to do is manually decline all 5 of those offers and get it added in as an addition, which delays everything for you. So when everyone else is ready to get their unconditional offers and get their CAS and everything like that, you're having to wait for your uh, your application to be moved over to a different system, and it really does delay things. So sorry for jumping in there, Madeline. I'm not sure if that's the same for everybody, but that's definitely something that happens with us.
I'm glad you said that because it is not the same at Napier. So
Okay.
All right, and then can we go to the next slide? And then just a note on, again, kind of speaking different English sometimes. We do have some ancient naming conventions. So you might see at some of the ancient universities, they've chosen to keep that ancient naming convention for the Bachelor of Arts. So if you're seeing a 4-year undergraduate degree with the title MA or Master of Arts, it is actually Bachelor of Arts. It is equivalent. It's just the historical name for the degree. And then some other confusing terminology that we have is when we say course, we are referring to the full degree program and not individual classes that a student is taking. And then a module is that individual class. And I think the more, you interact with UK universities and Scottish universities, you'll see that we're all using that same lingo, even if it's different from other parts of the English speaking world. All right.
I would just add that it's really important for students to do their research at all the universities, because even within, I mean, one degree could mean one thing at a Scottish university and something totally different at Oxford and Cambridge. So it's good exercise for them. It's a good way for them to really dig in and figure out what those differences are. But the naming conventions can be a bit of a trip up.
Right, for a small country overall, even like all of the UK, there's a lot of differences within us.
And then that will bring us to the healthcare piece. So the healthcare surcharge will be a part of a student's visa fees. So as they're going through the visa process, they'll pay kind of a lump sum that will cover the entire duration of their study in the UK. So if it's master's, it'll cover 2 years, and then full degree, or 1 year or 2, depending on the program. And then, 4-year for undergrad. It's one big lump sum that just buys your way into the public healthcare system, but there are some private healthcare options available. I'd say in talking to students, the most common is seeking mental health services, but overall, there are a few different ways that students can access private care if needed too. And then there are a few, I would say, very positive differences from the rest of the UK. There are no out-of-pocket or copay costs. Prescriptions will be completely free. And then eye care and dental care are also included in that health surcharge. So a little Scottish edge over the rest of the UK there. You get a little more bang for your buck with that surcharge.
And that yay for Scotland leads us nicely into our yay for Scotland slide. And just before I start on this, as the token Scot, taking the Scotland slide, but before I begin, we can see your Q&A questions coming in, and that's great. Just keep them coming, and we will answer them verbally at the end, so that everybody can hear our answers to them. So Scotland, yeah, Scotland in 2024 was named the most beautiful country in the world, which we're very proud of. But it's, of course, that's very subjective, but we are always named in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. And honestly, for good reason, if you've not been, it's a very, very beautiful place. Sun, well, I shouldn't start with sun, but sea and mountains everywhere, beautiful scenery. We don't always get the sunniest of weather, but right now it actually has been really sunny in Scotland, so everybody's photos are telling me. Um, it can be quite rainy, but that's what gives us that lush greenery, which is all over the country. And it's not just beauty, there's so much to do sports-wise. hiking is obviously one of the major ones, hiking, mountain climbing, rock climbing, anything like that. But there's also all of the outdoor sports that you can kind of really imagine. We have all the winter sports in different parts of the country, water sports. I mean, you're not going to be doing water sports in your bikini, but the water sports are there. You just need the right equipment and right clothing to be doing it. There's amazing music in Scotland for a very small country. Glasgow's the one I can speak to most, but Glasgow has some incredible venues for music, some really world-renowned intimate venues and massive venues. It was the first, an arena in Glasgow, was the very first arena in the entire world to be named a greener arena for its commitment to sustainability. So lots of things like that. Edinburgh has one of the largest outdoor festivals in the world, the Fringe Festival, which is an incredible time to be there in August. And then there are just loads of festivals all over the country, all throughout the year. Some really big ones, some really intimate ones, traditional music through everything else. So there's a lot to do and a lot to see. We're an old country, so really, really rich history and culture, some incredible museums all throughout. And just really, good people and good food and amazing wildlife as well. We have here pictured our beautiful Highland cow. Of course, we have Nessie as well, but Nessie's quite camera shy, so not pictured here, but absolutely real and worth visiting her house. So yeah, that's our little plug for Scotland, because I think, one of the main reasons that people want to go is not just the incredible universities and the academics, but it is really a beautiful country and a wonderful place to explore. That kind of wraps up everything that we wanted to do in our whistle-stop tour of Scotland. So before we pass it on to questions, just a quick overview of some of the upcoming events that AIRR-NA is hosting. There's a QR code at the bottom. If you want to scan that, you can register to any one of those. So we have the NACAC conference reception here in Columbus, which is where I am now, in September. We have a Texas tour in November, an East Coast tour in January, and a West Coast tour in February. So please do register to come to any of those and pass it on, and we would love to see you there. So that brings us to the end. Thank you all very much for listening. We do have a few questions, so we'll work through answering them. Sarah, Maddie, we can all just jump in if that's okay with you, whichever questions you want to answer. And then if you guys keep your questions coming, we'll try and get through them all.
Yeah, so if maybe it would help if I'll just read the question out since we're on recording, and then we can all just hop in if you want. But from Cody, if a student applies on Common App instead of UCAS, do they still need to have documents, i.e. reference, predicted grades, etc.? Yes. So to finish the question, how does the Common App link to UCAS? We are a UCAS center and have a buzzword. So Rosie, I think you're going to have probably a little different answer than us. So for St. Andrews on Common App, we don't, as far as I know, like nothing has to be done for us to link it to UCAS. The counselors don't need to do it. Our registry may have some internal process, but we do like Common App because it's really easy to upload those documents through Common App or whatever kind of platform you use. So yes, we will want references and those types of documents. We don't typically need a lot of predicted grades. It depends on the type of school. If you're an IB, we would ask for predicted grades, but other than that, we tend to the majority of our offers are unconditional. But I'll let Rosie and Maddie jump in and answer that too.
Yeah. Napier is pretty similar to that. I would say on our end, we just have to manually load it into UCAS, so it's not that difficult for us. But it would be, just making sure that we're getting those documents through verified means. So from the counselor and not from the student would be Napier's role there.
Glasgow's very similar. There is nothing that you would have to do as a counsellor or the school to link Common App and UCAS. That's very much done on our internal end, and there is no issue putting Common App students into UCAS. The only problem comes, and it's not really a problem, it's just a waiting game, is if the student has, like I say, filled up those 5 UCAS spots. And then let's say they've also applied to Glasgow. If they want to go with Glasgow, then that's when they have to go through the process of declining all those spots. But if that's not happening, If they're just applying through Common App and they haven't filled up their UCAS or they haven't used UCAS, then there's zero issue and nothing that needs done. But yes, references, they would need a reference and sometimes predicted grades, but it really depends on where they're at in their process and what they have. Cody, I'm going to
So
say,
I was
or
going to say,
sorry, yeah.
oh, go ahead, Rosie.
No, you go.
Oh, I was going to say the next question kind of relates to that about how what about students who apply to 5 UK schools or UCAS schools and then try and backdoor it through the direct applications. I think I can speak for all of us. Like, you really should encourage your students to apply to 5. It's one, it does make it more confusing, as Rosie pointed out, and when nobody wants you to backdoor it or have a student come in through the back door. We really do stress that it's really important to just apply to 5, and things happen. So it may be that, if all of those platforms combined are well over 5, they may just have to cancel out some of their applications. So that we wouldn't want that happen to your student.
As we're going through these, I'm going to click that we've answered them. So if there's anything that you're like, that didn't answer my question, please just put another one in and we'll address it.
I hear some UK schools reference a sandwich program. I'm not sure what that refers to or if it applies to Scottish schools. So I think you're referring to maybe an integrated year of in industry year, where that happens a lot in England, where a student will go to school, do the first 2 years and then do a year in, like a job placement. And then I think that's what you're referring to with the sandwich program. We don't really have that I can't speak for all. We do have a few programs that have an integrated year, so it makes it a 5-year degree. But again, it's just researching. All the different universities all have different options in that space.
Yeah, sandwich year isn't something that we really typically talk about in Scotland, but like Sarah said, for most of our science-based undergrads, you can add that 5th year integrated masters. But like Sarah mentioned, it's going to be program by program, school by school. So lots of research on the student end just to make sure that they have the options that they want to have.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you please inform us of some of the engineering program courses in Scottish unis? I can speak to St. Andrews that we do not have an engineering program. We have students that are interested in engineering that come in and do physics and computer science, but I'll let my 2 colleagues here talk about actual engineering undergraduate degree.
Yeah. I can say Napier engineering is kind of our foundation where our university started. So for Napier, engineering is kind of one of our specialties, but there's also, off the top of my head, and I know that there's more than this, but I'm still learning all the Scottish universities. But I know Strathclyde and Harriet Watt also have engineering programs. Rosie, I'm not sure on Glasgow.
Yeah, so we have a really wide breadth of engineering programs. We have mechanical and software, electrical, aeronautical. So we have a quite wide breadth. And I don't know how the other universities do this, but when I was talking earlier about the flexibility in degrees, engineering is slightly different, but all of our first year engineering students do the exact same year. So at the end of year 1, if you went in for software engineering, but you actually learned that you really liked aeronautical engineering, then you can change no problem at all because you've already done the exact same foundation year as everybody else. So that's kind of like a nice thing about the flexibility piece of doing engineering in Scotland.
Yeah.
We have a few more questions about the 5 course max. So just to reiterate, that is you can apply to 5 schools or courses in the UK. So if your student, as this counselor mentioned, is applying to a zillion programs on the Common App, that's fine as long as they're in the US. But those 5 programs, that 5 program max just applies to 5 universities in the UK.
Yeah, so if they're using Common App and they only want to apply to 1 or 2 schools in the UK, they can just put them in common. That's probably the easiest thing for them. But if there are 5 schools that they're interested in, what we would encourage them to do is not to apply to no UK schools on Common App and just apply to all 5 on UCAS. So if they're planning to use UCAS, it's easiest for them if they just use UCAS and they just use their 5. Then they can't make any mistakes. I think, does that answer both of the questions that are in there?
Yeah, I think so.
But yes, they are still allowed to apply to non-UCAS schools, yes. So they can still have a million schools out that are outside of the UK in Common App. If they want to add those chores for themselves to be applying to all those schools, they are more than welcome to do so, but it's just the UK piece. So
And a
that,
plug for UCAS
yeah.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
they are using kind of one essay for that. So, I mean, it's getting sent out to each of us. So while they are applying to 5 schools potentially, like it's still a lot quicker than even say if they're applying to 5 schools in the Common App because they can have even more of that supplementary information.
So I actually think that's perfect timing because we're just at time.
We do
but-
have one more question.
Oh, here, okay.
Yeah, sorry. So it's just come in right just now. I'm curious how Common App lands for you since the essay is so different than what UK universities are looking for in a statement, i.e. Common App is your life story or amount, or versus a statement of why the course of study is a good match for you. I would say, and everyone else, please feel free to jump in here. A couple of things. I think that counselors are really good about instructing their students about how to write the UCAS essays, and the UCAS essays have changed now, so there are 3 prompts that I do think kind of helps that guide the answers. But I also think that we are quite lenient with Common App essays because we know that they have gone through their entire schooling preparing to write this, life story kind of essay. So I think there's some leniency there.
I can speak for St. Andrews here that we actually do not read the Common App personal statement, the general one. We are only going to look at the supplemental questions, which are much like the ones they will see on the UCAS. So we are much more interested in seeing like the passion and interest in the subject. And I always tell students that it should be very different from what they wrote in that Common App essay. So the emotion and the creativity, obviously we want well-written answers, but we don't need the creativity. We honestly just much more to the point, like, why do you want to study physics or whatever it is, but you don't need to have lots of creative emotion in those answers.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to overgeneralize, but I think in the US, like the admissions process is so much more holistic and puts a lot more emphasis on the essay. But again, we're more assessing for like the fit for the program and making sure that you'll be able to complete the work required of the program, not necessarily that whole campus fit piece that is so important in a lot of US admissions.
I think one thing that I often tell counselors that I think is quite helpful is that if for the UCAS answers, someone should be able to read any 2 sentences of any of the answers and know what program this person is applying to and why. They shouldn't have to read through paragraphs and paragraphs before they're like, okay, it's biology. That should be prominent and quite obvious. And I think that sometimes helps students to some focus. And I think that is what we might call perfect timing. There's 0 questions left, and we are at the almost at the top of the hour. So if there are no more questions to come in, I guess we'll just round out. So thanks very much for listening, everybody. If you do have any other questions, you have our email addresses, you have the AIRR-NA email address, do feel free to send anything along. I hope we'll see you at the upcoming events.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.